All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Innovation Bay's Wednesday morning virtual event series. I'm your host today, Ian Gardner. I'm a co-founder at Innovation Bay, and I'm also a VC, so investment partner at Gelix Ventures. So we did one of these last week, but for each week for the foreseeable future, while we're living these crazy times, we will assemble a group of fantastic guests from founders, investors, corporates, government, and others across the ecosystem. So we'll invite them along. We'd love to get them to share their experiences coping with COVID-19 and beyond. You know, we want to think beyond this. And essentially, we want to help us all connect, learn, and be inspired by these people who make this ecosystem we all love so great. If you missed last week's VC panel, don't worry. We've got a recording of it. It's up on our YouTube, the Innovation Bay YouTube channel, or check the Twitter feed. And I think actually Shan, who's our GM, is going to post the link in the chat now as well, if you want to see that. We had a few hundred registrations this morning, so big hello and welcome to all of you joining from wherever you are. And we hope that you're keeping safe and sane and indoors. It's never been more important that we all come together as a community, as an ecosystem. We want to support each other. We want to learn from each other so that when we do come out of this, which we will, we come out united and stronger than ever. So look, really appreciate you all being with us today. If you are not familiar with Innovation Bay, we are the longest running community group. I can say that safely. We started in 2002, thereabouts. Longest running community group for tech startups and investors in Australia. Our mission is to support founders on their journey from idea to IPO and beyond. We do run events, programs across all five major states. We've got 5,000 plus people in the community, founders, people working in startups, investors, and others. And the objective is to learn, connect, and grow with each other. We're pretty proud that we've helped Australian startups raise over 50 million bucks in funding through connections that we made at our events. We also do a weekly podcast called Open the Pod Bay Door. Some of the guests today have been on that. And that tells the stories of people working in startup O's and curate lots of other useful resources for startups. So you can find all of this and more by signing up at innovationbay.com. Quick sponsor call out. We couldn't do any of this without the support of our sponsors. So we do really want to say a huge thank you to AWS, IAG, Farmark Ventures, KPMG's High Growth Ventures, and Macquarie Bank. Look, not only did these guys support Innovation Bay, but they do amazing work supporting the whole startup ecosystem, and they're actually doing a huge amount during this crazy time. So please do check out their services and products. So look, before we kick things off, just want to let you all quickly know how the session will run. So look, I'm going to start. We've got a bunch of prepared questions, and anyone that knows me knows I can ask questions all day. There has been a bunch of great questions come in on the registration, so thank you all for that. We are taking live questions. The only way to do it, don't do that in the chat. The chat is live and it's open to everyone. So if you are using the chat, just please be nice and sensible. But if you want to ask a question, there is a Q&A functionality on the, I think it's bottom left of your Zoom screen. Just hit the Q&A button. So, and we'll take them roughly after 20 minutes. All right, let me stop my slide share and we'll meet the panel. So welcome everyone. We have Didier, maybe just give us a wave. Didier from CultureAmp, Kate from Adore Beauty, Bridget from Expert 360, and Luke from SafetyCulture. Unbelievable group of founders. I mean, I haven't done a tally on their head count that they control, but it's certainly north of 1,000 people. And again, I haven't done a tally on their enterprise value, but you know, $2 or $3 billion I'd have thought between them. So we've asked these guys together if they'd come and just share their experiences as sort of more mature, later stage founders and how they're adapting and dealing and leading their companies through this pretty crazy moment in time. So look, Didier's got a hard stop at 8:30, so I think everyone else can hang around till 9. So we might just jump into this. So look, Didier, I might start with you if you don't mind. So first of all, I'm asking this question of everyone because I think it's the most important one. How are you? And secondly, how has your business been affected by this?
I think I'm like probably everyone in the world. It depends on which minute of the day. Like it's just such a difficult thing to really comprehend with. Whenever I think I'm okay, then I, read something else and then go, oh God, my whole mental model's just collapsed. That said, it's nice to be home with the kids. It's nice to be home with the cat and the dog for most of the day. Some days it's a little bit hard. Business-wise, we're seeing it. About 3 weeks ago, everything started to collapse. So this week, we're starting to see things start to improve week on week, but we're down 20 to 40% across the funnel. So from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel. And we're looking forward and pretty much halved our growth forecast for the rest of the year. Happy to be in a position where we can actually think about growing at all, because there are lots of companies that can't. But still, pretty much all your plans are out the window, thinking about what's coming.
And how many staff do you have, Didier?
440 globally.
Right, so you immediately working at home in the last month or so. So, I mean, how's that process been?
Yeah, so we went suggested work from home about a month ago, mandatory work from home 3 weeks ago. We're in London, New York, San Francisco, and Melbourne. So in my daily situation room, I get the COVID data for all of those cities. And so it's been pretty staggering watching what's happened in New York. And so a lot of the first 2 weeks was just making sure everyone was healthy, making sure we could get everyone home. We had 2 people that we managed to get in with an hour to spare as the borders closed.
Wow.
So a lot of that was pretty crazy. I think we are lucky in the sense that, like I think most of the people on this call, we're probably more suited to working from home than some businesses. So it's been good in a way, but the culture bit's hard. I mean, that's the thing that keeps me motivated, is that in terms of what we do, which is help people around culture, employee health and productivity is number one priority for everyone at the moment. People have to realize, are we still standing 6 months from now? And if we are still standing, how do we help the people we have be effective in a world that none of us have been in before?
Yeah.
So we're dealing with it, and we're also trying to help all our customers deal with it too.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Kate, I might jump to you as the other Melbourneite. I'm not actually sure what the correct expression from Melbourne is. What is it?
Melburnian.
Melburnian. Oh, yes, I should have known that. I prefer the Tasmanian, the Taswegian.
I'm a bit Tasmanian anyway, so.
Oh, there you go. Well, let me ask you the same question, Kate. So, look, how are you? And then I'll maybe follow up with that, because I mean, you are Adore Beauty is in e-commerce. So how's that been affected? How's the overall sector looking? And then I do want to ask you about the community war room you did, but I don't want to overface you with too many questions. So how are you doing, and what's going on?
I'm doing okay, actually, at the moment. But like Didier said, it's sort of a day-to-day and hour-by-hour proposition as to how that goes. I don't know, oddly, I find myself kind of pretty well suited for a crisis in terms of my my management style. I think the first 10 years of Adore, we were bootstrapped, and it was sort of like a constant fight for survival. So I don't know, to me it kind of feels like not that unfamiliar, weirdly. So yeah, I'm doing okay. There are some challenges to working from home with small children who want to be entertained, but this week's solution has been putting a tent up in the backyard, so that's been working pretty well. But yeah, I'm okay. In terms of business and how that's going, we've actually seen quite a big surge in demand. So turns out that beauty products are the sort of thing that people feel is pretty essential, even if you're in lockdown. And lots of the places where people would normally go and buy that kind of thing are closed. So look, we're actually dealing with an upsurge in demand, but the challenge, of course, for us is that our office staff can go and work from home, but our warehouse requires people to put things in boxes.
Yeah.
And so the challenge for us has been, to protect staff and protect jobs by making sure that the warehouse is a safe place to work.
And how have you done that?
Oh, look, lots of things. I mean, the first thing, and the part that's been really important in sort of trying to lead everybody through this, is to sort of set out at the start, okay, whose guidelines are we following? So we're following Victorian Department of Health and WorkSafe, and so we will do whatever they tell us that we need to do to make our warehouse safe. We've had OH&S consultants out there to visit to, sort of check that we're doing everything okay. But a lot of it's been around physically distancing all the workstations, changing some of the workflows so that people are actually picking and packing all their own orders rather than picking them, passing to somebody else. Regulating the times that people can go for breaks so that we can have as few people as possible in the break room at any one time. I mean, cleaning, just a religious amount of cleaning and hand sanitizer everywhere. And we've just gone this week to split shifts. So we were operating 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. We now got 2 shifts, one going from 5 till 1, and then a deep clean, and then another going from 2 till 10, so that we can have fewer people on the floor at any one time. Yeah. The challenge, of course,
if one person gets infected, then and you have to stand down a few, then at least you've got a different shift that's not been touched.
Well, yeah, and look, the idea is that no one person has actually been close enough to anybody else for long enough and hasn't touched another thing that someone else has touched. So that, the idea is that it's to make it as sort of impossible, well, next to impossible for anyone to kind of give it to anybody else, because we need to keep that warehouse operational.
And Kate, I want to ask you about just before we move on, the community aspect. So it was announced last week, I think I saw on one of the startup channels, that you created this Slack war room for e-commerce founders. So why did you do that, and what are you hearing from the rest of the e-commerce industry?
Well, it was a couple of weeks ago, which, I don't know, there's this kind of weird dog years thing happening at the moment.
It really is.
A couple of weeks ago, it's like a couple of years ago. And I know I was feeling like very uncertain, and like I didn't know what was going on, and we didn't know what was going to be coming next, and we weren't sure how we should be sort of dealing with any particular thing, because there's no playbook for any of this, right? Like, nobody knows what they're doing. And I thought, gosh, if I'm feeling this way, and we have a good leadership team, and we have skilled investors, and we have an HR department, what about all those other businesses out there that don't have any of that? We actually all have similar challenges. And so I got to work and sort of threw together this Slack workspace and put the word out, and there's 270 businesses in there now. And it's just been really tremendous for a few things. Like, sharing information has been really important, so that, okay, well, does anybody know what's going on with this? Okay, nobody does. Okay, good, that's right. Okay, I can file that into not a thing where I'm missing the information, but where the information's not there. It's been really good also too, just for a bit of emotional and moral support, because there's a lot of businesses there facing huge, 80% drop-offs in demand, and they're having to make really difficult and awful decisions. And I think there's nothing worse than having to do that and feeling like you're doing it on your own, and that maybe you were the one who didn't manage it properly or something, and everybody else is fine, which is not, of course, the case. So it's actually been really lovely that everyone's instinct at a time like this is not to, defend their own turf and fight their own fight, but to come together and help each other and share.
No, it's so important. That's part of the reason that we're doing these on a weekly basis. It's just bringing people together and sharing stories is just so powerful. Bridget, I want to jump to you if we can. So, same question. How are you? And the second question, how are you managing uncertainty? No one loves uncertainty, and I can't remember another period in my long life when it's been as uncertain. As Kate alluded to, we're kind of in accelerated dog years. So how are you doing?
Look, I echo the stuff that the other guys said as well. I think it feels like every 48 hours is a huge new challenge that's unfolding. It started with the basics of, okay, are people healthy? Are their families healthy? How do we get them set up in their homes? And then once you've kind of got that sorted, then you start to think outside. Okay, for us, actually, one of the big challenges, but also opportunities to lead and make a difference was that because we are a marketplace for contractors, freelancers, consultants, we inadvertently found ourselves in a very important role to communicate with them, because they're not because they're not employees of the companies in which they're working. They weren't getting comms about how to deal with the crisis, or even some of them policies about what the company policy was. And so, that was a big piece of work that we that we stood up. And I guess, yeah, every few days another big challenge presents itself. And so you're trying to kind of war room and bring people together to solve those problems and stay calm, but also keep them energized and motivated. But at the same time, just keep a level of consistency, like try and keep just some rhythms with the team as everything else around them seems to be kind of blowing up or falling apart.
And how are you dealing with it? I mean, like you're one of the most gregarious people I know who just loves hanging out with other people and you're cooped up at home. So how's that for you?
Look, I think I talk to my dog a lot.
I was hoping you might be on this call, but you need to get him down.
You know, I think Didier was doing this and I started doing it as well, just a little video to the whole company every 2 days. And in part of it is about communication, updating them on things, but sometimes it's just not even about that. It's just about connection. It's just about saying, I'm here, I'm human, this is tough. Like yesterday, I sent a small video to the team just sharing what my setup was like and some of the challenges that I was finding, and space and family members, and just to build some empathy in the team. You know, the grief curve made famous by The Simpsons when Homer eats the pufferfish. Basically, I think what I've realized is that everyone is at a different place on that. Some are still at the beginning where they're in denial or feeling anxious. But as entrepreneurs, we've all often moved to the next. We're like, okay, how do we solve this? How do we move forward? Where's the opportunity? How do we serve customers in a different way? And forgetting that, just remembering always to come back and say, where are my people on this journey? Because if you try and pull them too fast, the whole company into that solution mode of serving customers an opportunity, then that's, I think, where culture starts to break down a little bit.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and it's a challenge for the chat room. If anyone can find that clip on YouTube of the Simpsons episode with curve and the pufferfish, that would be great. All right, finally, Luke, all the way from the Sunshine Coast, thank you for joining us. It's earlier there, so you know it is. You were out of bed nice and early, so thank you. Yeah, how are you doing, and what's happening with SafetyCulture?
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, I'm mostly doing good most days. I think some days you kind of are better than others, but I think as we get into more of a mindset that this is the new normal, then this I think is something that we all sort of start to come to terms with and then manage it easier. So initially it was the response of, okay, how is the world changing around us? What does that mean to us and our customers? How do we get 380 people working from home around the world? And so initially it was focused on that. I think we're about 3 weeks now we've been working from home. And so, it was helping people get good daily habits, helping people set up plans for their houses, for their families, and making sure that what they were starting to build now was sustainable throughout, the next 3-6 months, however long this lasts. And so that was initially the focus, I think, for the first few weeks. We're now sort of transitioning into, okay, this is the new normal. Let's make sure that all of us are looking after each other and checking in, and we're supporting people and adapting to the sort of way we work now. And then also starting to think, me being me, I start to think, well, okay, what's life look like on the other side of this, and how do we also prepare for that? And so I think, like to Bridget's point, you don't want to jump too quickly to that and not take people on the journey. But I think as entrepreneurs, it's our nature and also our responsibility to think about, a time and a place that's better than now. And so, I think that's an important part of how we deal with it as well, just in terms of there is always, an optimistic view, even if it's what can we learn from this? It might be everything else has been decimated, but what do we learn? From a business point of view, it's been quite interesting because we've had for the last 8 years, really, product teams and marketing teams frustrated because our platform and our checklist app, iAuditor, is used by almost every industry. And the frustration has been that when they want to write a marketing email, who are they writing it to? Because so many different people use our products. And so, you know, and when we build a product feature, it's like, what is the persona we're building for? Because, you know, we've got people in Antarctica using it, and United Nations and Starbucks, and, you know, it's crazy. And so for the longest time, that's actually been a massive frustration. And ironically, in this situation, the fact that we're across so many different industries is also providing us some insulation to the crisis that's happening around us. And so, you know, I'm kind of, you know, got a bit of a cheeky smile when I say to people, like, the thing that you've been complaining about all this time is actually the thing that's saving our ass right now. And that's a good thing. And so, you know, I think, you know, there's all the moving pieces around all that as well. We're about to shoot the new series of The New Hustle. We had a whole bunch of founders lined up, producers, everybody. And now all of a sudden we can't get to anyone because they're all locked up in their houses. And so, you know, logistically, you know, that's happening in the background as kind of a side project for myself. You know, we just happened to decide to close a funding round 2 weeks ago in the midst of all that, which still hasn't been announced yet, the details, but that'll be coming. And that was absolutely chaotic as well. We had, you know, investors all around the world that were trying to scramble together in the space of 48 hours to close out a round 2 weeks ago, because I thought maybe the world was going to stop on the Monday. And so, you know, I think part of it is just, you know, there's been so much happening that we haven't had time to probably process it all.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't realize you were doing episode 2 of The New Hustle. So if anyone's watching this and hasn't watched the original version of The New Hustle, it's an amazing movie that Luke, in his crazy wisdom, decided to make. So where's the best place to watch it? Is it on YouTube?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. People can watch it on there.
Do a search for The New Hustle. All right, I want to keep moving. I'm just aware of the time, and Didier's going to have to jump. So I want to ask a question that's sort of slightly angled towards Didier. So, you know, and these are now questions from the audience. So Kirsten McIntosh asked this question. So what rituals and cultures are working best to maintain culture? So Didier, I'll ask you that, and then if the rest of the panel wants to jump in, they can.
So I think Bridget talked to it before as well. There's an article floating around from Vern Harnish called The 5 C's in a Crisis. And one of those is communication. And he says, you know, record a video to your team every day. I actually do it every day. Bridget does it every 2 days. The goal is to have it about 2 minutes. So you're not overthinking it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you're sharing what's going on in your mind, what you're worried about, what you're helpful for, you're humanizing. I think Bridget said it really well, where everyone's sitting at home with kids and a not well set up workstation and missing lunch and doing all these sorts of things and feeling like they're failing, and being able to see that you're struggling too can really, really help people. And more than anything, people just want communication. And it's not clever. Like, I record it in photo booth, I turn it to 480p in QuickTime so it's not too big, and then I upload it to Slack. And people just put little emoticons and icons on it, and it's a great way of connecting with everyone and giving them a sense of what's going on. I think that change curve thing's really huge too. Like, my previous life was film, so I'm kind of plotting out what other storylines I have to talk about over the coming weeks to help people go through that curve. So that's one. Second thing we've done, which has been really helpful in a crisis, is we've actually built a daily situation room. So we have a spreadsheet where we track all the external data, all the internal data, all the comms that we're doing, and then like a lightweight PMO. So what are all the things that have to be spun up in response to the crisis? And so that's the reason I have to go, because that's my sacred time, 8:30 to 9 a.m. We have about 30 people dial in, and we just walk through, are there any comms that have to go out? Who's got those? What have we learned overnight? How's all of our internal data changed, and how's the world changed? And then, you know, what projects are being spun up and are they on track? And that's been really great for just creating a rhythm and a ritual for people to drive. So I think those two things are really important. And then on the social side, the thing I keep saying back to people is meetings have a different purpose now in a virtual world. So the fact that you might spend the first 10 minutes of a meeting checking in, catching up, finding out how people are going, that's the new normal in this world. Like, we need that. We crave that connection with each other. And so while some people are like, let's just get on with it and make decisions, meetings are our social connection. And so we've had to repurpose them and change how they work. Yeah.
Anyone else want to jump in on this? Like, I mean, I've heard of some, wine and nibbles on a Friday night instead of a Friday night beers. I mean, anything fun that you're doing beyond just, spending your entire day in Zoom or house party? Like, what, Bridget, like, you've come off mute, so.
Yeah, we like Didier, we've got a daily war room. We've given people throughout the company special roles to stay on top of things. So we've got like a chief stimulus officer who's just a guy in the team who's looking after what are the things here that could impact our people. And so, yeah, that meeting every morning has been really important. We've kind of divided into defense and offense. So there's things that we need to do as a company to kind of protect our people, protect our customers and our clients. But then there's also offensive against COVID. So we have thought about like a lot of the challenges for our country or for the economy are around quickly redeploying talent and talent into jobs away from, existing staff. And so, talent marketplace is perfect to do that at scale. So how can we adapt our platform quickly to serve government, serve the healthcare sector, et cetera? So we've got a defense team and an offense team.
Yeah.
Then on the small stuff, we've got one of the guys in our team used to be a PT. So we've got workout Wednesdays where maybe about half the company dials in and does a workout together.
Half? That's pretty good. Gee whiz.
Yeah, we told the team to come in and take their monitors, take their chairs, just really get set up properly at home.
Bridget, I might just interrupt for a sec because I'm sorry, but Didier is about to jump, and I do want one more question to before we go. So, Didier, last question for you, and then we'll let you hop. And it's in from Yolanda Redrup. So we're getting some famous journos asking questions too. So, what's been the toughest challenge for you to manage in this period so far?
I think that the toughest thing to manage is that people are paralyzed by fear. They need certainty. They need a plan. They need something that they can grab hold of and run towards. But there is no certainty. And so how do we use mental models or whatever to basically come up with a model and say, this is the model we're working towards, and it may have to change tomorrow, but this is our current view and this is what we're going forward. So everyone wants to know that they still have a job. And you're like, yes, you still have a job and this is what we're doing. And this is how we're going to do it. But we don't know what the world's going to look like 6 months from now. We have not seen a crisis like this that is global in every industry. If anyone's seen the US unemployment numbers, the chart is broken because it is so much higher than it's ever been before. And so that's the hardest part to challenge. How do you communicate that with staff? How do you embrace reality and not, sugarcoat and not be unclear and not be just, false hope? But equally, how do you go through all of that and go, oh, well, that's fine. That is what it is. This is what we're doing. Yeah. And this is how we're going to move forward. So that's the thing that I find every day is the hardest thing to navigate.
Yeah. All right. Well, you've got 10 seconds to make it to your next meeting, Didier, and I don't want to make you late. So
it's the advantage of the new world. I don't have to go anywhere. I just change Zoom links.
I'm sure you've got a great virtual background.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being on it, and look forward to coming back and seeing what the rest of the panel says for the last half hour.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, Didier.
All right. Thanks all. Bye.
Look, for the rest of us, I might try and get some of the negative, well, not negative, but some of the tougher questions out of the way, because I do want to make sure we're finishing on a bit of a high. So now I've got a challenge in the question here. This came in from Karthipian, Srikan and Pathy. So how does the recent JobKeeper announcement impact each of you? In fact, this probably isn't such a tough question, but there'll be more coming. So this was announced yesterday. So $1,500 per fortnight to the employer for each employee if your revenue has dropped 30% in a year's period. So it's a bit uncertain. So has this affected any of you? Have you been chatting to your accountants? It may be a short question because you may not have any experience in this, but Kate, you're off mute, so let's ask you first.
Look, it's not something that we need at this stage while we can still remain operational, while we can still maintain our supply chain. But from my perspective, it's a big relief to know that it's there. I hope we don't need it, but in terms of kind of giving a bit of a safety net, if there are further regulations and we do have to shut down further down the track, it's certainly it certainly takes a bit of my mind to know that that your team can be looked after.
And there's an argument here that the scheme is a little bit biased almost against startups, because we're all in high growth mode, and most companies are growing 50% annually anyway. So even if you get clobbered in between February and March and you lose 50% of your sales, then arguably, according to the data, you're not going to be 30% down on the year. And I think that's going to be a tough argument for us. So I don't know whether, again, I don't suspect it's applying to Luke or Bridget, so it may not be a question. We might just keep moving on.
Here's one thing on that, Ian.
Yeah, sure.
I think the latest advice as of late last night is that there are a bunch of exceptions around the previous corresponding period. So it might not be March to March, but it actually could be, if that doesn't make sense for your business, which arguably startup revenue is highly variable, highly variable usually in one direction, that the advice we've got from Startup Oz and others is that we can actually potentially compare month with month and make a case there.
Yeah, I mean, as with all these things, I mean, the announcements are coming thick and fast. I mean, it's been insane what's been happening. We are doing a panel next week with Alex McCauley, Kate Cornick, and Rachel Newman, addressing all the government challenges. So we might just store that up for there. So let me ask another question, which probably applies to all of you. And this is a sort of slightly more negative one. So John Simons, thanks for the question. So in last week's panel with the VCs, there was a lot of talk around cost saving and cash conservation. Cash is a currency. You only run out of cash once in a business, so that is crucial. What about downsizing? Move fast and hard to keep remaining staff motivated, or hold on for longer? So, yeah, again, does anyone want to touch on this sort of rather snarly one? Luke.
Yeah, I think Rick Anderson from Apple told me that at Apple they panic at unreasonable times. So when the time comes, everyone else is panicking. They've already sort of tried to deal with it. I think coincidentally and purely by luck, we were panicking about a year ago. We had pretty high cash burn, $2.5 million a month sort of thing, and we'd hired too many people too quick and stuff. And so the whole business really changed and set us up for a time when a lot of people are saying that winter's coming, that there's been a bear run for too long, and that at some point something will trigger it. And so I didn't really subscribe to that way of thinking, but I think just our circumstances meant that we had to clean up the business. And so for us, we've been able to say to all of our team that we will support you through this, our contractors, our casual staff, and our chef Lucia and her team. They're working from home and they're posting recipes and things for people to make. They obviously can't cook for everyone anymore, and so that's how we've approached it. But obviously we reassess it month by month. But I think if this is a 3 to 6 month process we have to go through, then we're in a position where we're able to take care of people and go after. That's our position on it. I know not everyone's like that, and we certainly wouldn't have been in that position a couple of years ago. And so for us, we're able to try and take some of the responsibility. I think government's doing a great job. Industry's got to do its bit as well if it can, and we all sort of help each other to get through it. And that's kind of how we've thought about it. So fortunately, we haven't had to think about, okay, how do you lay people off and that sort of thing.
And Kate, Bridget, I mean, either in this current scenario or previously, I mean, this concept of cutting hard and deep early in order to keep the remaining staff motivated and not have this horrible drip feed of redundancies or short hours over the next few weeks. I mean, any experience or thoughts on that? Kate, have you had to do this before?
So, look, I mean, we've always kind of operated under, a more traditional model where we've just never really had cash burn. We just only ever kind of bit off as much as we could, chew at the time. And so the business has really always been profitable. So it's a bit different. Our fixed cost base is actually not all that big. That said, even at the moment, even though it's busy, we're still being very conservative with cash. We were about to hire a bunch of new people, which we've just kind of hit pause on at the moment until we have a better idea how things are going to shake out. I mean, personally, I think my approach would be, you know, sort of actually cut staff as a very, 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 very last resort. And I think our culture would be more around, okay, well, if we all need to go to 4 days or 3 days or 2 days, even just to sort of like keep everybody on, so that, you know, we're ready to go when we come out of it, then that would probably be our approach. But I think it really depends. I think for each business, what you think things are going to look like for your business in a recession. If it goes on for longer and there's high unemployment, like, is your business kind of going to come out of it? You know, is it going to be, what are they, you know, they like a V curve, or is it going to take a while for things to pick up again?
Yeah. All right, while you've got the talking stick, Kate, I might ask you a specific retail question. It's coming from Peter Mycock. So what impact are we going to see with online retail sales? And I guess that's just generally across the sector. Is this going to force faster growth? And if so, will the supply chain be able to keep up?
Good questions. Look, I think it's too soon to hypothesize about that, really. I mean, I think certainly from what we're seeing, there's a lot of new customers, like about 3 times the amount of new customers hitting our site every day as there was before. So certainly there are a lot of new people kind of being forced into shopping online because the places they would normally buy from are closed, or they don't feel safe to go there. I guess, you know, I would hope that if we give them a good experience, that they'll continue to shop that way, or at least partly.
The question in the supply chain?
Supply chain, look, I mean, for us, the supply chain's it's not all that different for e-commerce versus bricks and mortar. I mean, it's, you know, at the moment, all of our suppliers, because their bricks and mortar channels are drying up, they're diverting all of their supply to us or to online retailers anyway. I don't see a particularly big issue in supply chain. I think our bigger issue will be, okay, well, if countries like Italy and France stay in prolonged lockdown, there's a lot of beauty products coming from there, and
right.
some problems. But yeah, I don't think e-commerce is particularly different.
All right, let me ask, I'm going to try and keep a high cadence of questions coming in here. So this is a common theme, and there's a couple of people, so Eliza Jackson and Casey Thomas asked this question, and it's approximately the same theme. So now we're all working from home. We talked a little bit about communications and how important that is, but any other software tools that you've been using during this period to engage the teams, maintain culture, productivity that you weren't using before? So let me jump to Luke on that one.
Look, I think all the standard stuff, Slack and everything. Zoom is probably the big one that for whatever reason, Zoom has timed itself perfectly for this. So we were using Google Hangouts all the time. Now we probably use it half the time or less. And we use Zoom the rest of the time. Zoom's just like handles the bandwidth issues and things like that phenomenally well. So yeah, Zoom stock will probably do well out of all of this, I'd imagine. But
did you see that funny story about there's another company called Zoom out of China that makes chicken fertilizer or something, and its share price has gone up by 20 times because people think it's the video conferencing one. It's brilliant.
Yeah, no, I don't think we're using anything special. We're obviously doing the videos to the team and that sort of thing, and just sharing what we're doing. We've got some cameras where we, you know, shoot a couple of different angles to make it a bit more interesting, so it's not just a single, you know, looking at a computer type call all the time. And we do what we can. They use phones and things to get different perspectives, but you know, the same sort of stuff as everyone else. I think I don't think there's anything magic. House Party, that app is obviously blowing up again. I remember when it came out, it went nuts, and then it died off, and now yeah, everybody's having all these house parties. But I think we're all realizing that you get 30 people in a house party, no one can talk.
I think I've realized I'm too old and friendless to be on there, so that's a shame. So
yeah, so you know, I don't think we're doing anything special. It's all, you know, just using the stuff that everybody else is using.
Bridget, you look like you might want to say something on this one. Any tools that you're using?
Oh, so I wasn't actually, I just want to say one thing about the last question, Ian, around like cutting costs and stuff like that. I woke up one day, I had a big mental shift in this. I originally was like, we've just done a capital raise, great, we're in a great position, we've got good cash reserves. And then And then I had a conversation with our investors, and my mind shift quickly changed to, and I think this is right for all startups, you don't just want to survive this, but actually your dollar on the other side of this goes so far. So if you can conserve as much cash as possible during this time, you've got to do that. And in particular, like a lot of people can't make decisions about buying stuff. So anything you're spending on non-pandemic customer acquisition, BD, all those kind of things, I think you got to rethink those costs. And then just looking through your whole stack, rent, lots of startups that I know, including us, have renegotiated 3 to 6 months free rent. So I think just go through that.
Top tip to doing that? Like, how have you done that?
Get on the phone, maybe get a director or someone else as well to kind of weigh in with you, and then contact your agent twice a day, and ask for something aggressive and say, look, this is going to massively impact our business. You want us here on the other side. You want us strong, and go hard and be aggressive on it.
Yeah, and use some Irish charm.
Yes, although I don't think I was very charming on these calls. If I'm honest. That was all I wanted to say about that. Yeah.
All right, let's keep this cadence. There's some fantastic questions coming in, so thanks everyone. There's one here from Shannon Gilliland. Luke, I guess specifically, but for the other two as well, it's kind of around fundraising. So if you're raising funds or have just raised funds, I mean, how is your forecasting changed? So I mean, this uncertainty is a nightmare. So how can you plan for the sort of 3, 6, 12 month future, let alone beyond that? So
I always think of the worst case scenario and work through that. What does that look like? And then start thinking about the best case scenario and work through that. And then if I can deal with the worst case, then I can certainly deal with anything, towards the best case. And so I think we've got to be somewhat realistic about it, but I would say that it's possible we could lose, 50% of our sort of growth or revenue as a worst case scenario. I don't think that's going to happen, but I like the idea of saying, well, if we lost 50% of our business, what would that mean and how would we deal with that? And I think that's a healthy, rigorous exercise to go through at any time anyway, because it really challenges your thinking around where you're deploying capital, where you're putting your resources. And so, it's kind of, prioritizing, it's forcing you to say, well, what's most important in your business and how would you, allocate resources to that? And what would you sacrifice if you weren't able to do all the things you're doing? And so I think that discipline generally is actually very good. And in terms of forecasting, we just, run a whole bunch of different models and tweak them as information comes in. I'm on a call with Morgan Stanley's chief economist, and these guys every Sunday night, they're sort of providing a whole lot of data. There's some other founder groups, WhatsApp groups that I'm on where we're sharing information, every day. And that helps, I think, shape some of the thinking and the scenarios that you plan for. But once, I don't over-index for it. I go, okay, worst case scenario, what does this cost us over the next 6 months? If this goes for 6 months, how much money would we lose? And how would we deal with that? And then how do we get ourselves in a position on the other side of it? So, we think about, there's a whole lot of retraining and repurposing of staff right now in the world. We don't have a training offering in our platform today. I'm fast tracking that. In the next 4 weeks, I want to be able to deliver a training capability for our customers. And so we probably won't grow net revenue, like new revenue, very much. It should plateau and drop a little bit, but we should be able to grow our user base to some degree, particularly in certain industries, in healthcare and things like that. And so, we think about what's the position we want to come out of this in, and how do we model towards it.
All right, Kate, Bridget, do you want to touch on that forecasting piece? Maybe Kate first and Bridget. Kate, yeah, you're still on mute. Scrambling for the button. There we go.
Okay, sorry. My button stopped working. Yeah, look, I mean, we do much the same. It's all right, well, let's run a forecast for the worst case. Let's say we have to close our warehouse and we have 0 revenue for, 3 months. And then when we come out of that, our supply is terrible. And so we only have, maybe 30% of a normal, sales amount. And if you can run that and find ways to not run out of money, then you're pretty okay. And then, so I guess, yeah, I mean, the trouble is that nobody knows what's going to happen, right? We don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And so, yes, you've just got to plan for the worst, hope for the best.
I think that's a phrase that I've been using myself and keep hearing.
Yeah.
I think it's so true. You just, as I come back to, you only run out of cash once. And I think all of us, you folk in this call, you've got bigger businesses, much bigger levers to pull all over the place. But, if you think back to when you were tiny, which was not that long ago, I mean, like, this is a high growth business. It's a very different scenario because, the levers you have to pull around that are very, very small. So if you're either raising funds or have just raised a fund, I mean, that forecasting piece, again, it's just when you're small, you get buffeted much more by the environment you're in. So it's definitely tough. And I don't think there's a great answer for anyone in this. So, all right, shall we take another question? This is an anonymous question. People have talked about preserving cash, as we just have, but if there is an opportunity in the current environment, should you be doubling down on marketing spend? So, I guess it goes beyond just marketing. So it's the concept of investing for growth right now if you see the opportunity. So even if you may be petrified about cash. Bridget.
Yeah, it's a good question, and one that we are spending a lot of time talking about. I think the main thing that everyone needs to recognize is that the environment is different and people have different problems today. And those problems that they have today will be different to in a month and different to in 6 months. And so most of us developed our products and our services for a non-pandemic economy. And so I think if you're going to invest in marketing, and we still are, then you want to just understand deeply the problems that you're solving. Who has those problems? Is this a problem they have now or in 3 months? And make sure that you market to that appropriately. So I think we've kind of thrown our marketing plan out the door, really, and just have a new one. So I think it's still appropriate, but just make sure that it's tailored.
All right, let's keep going. We're sort of 10 minutes away or thereabouts. So there's a question here again. I think it's anonymous. It's around leadership style. So this concept of wartime CEO versus peacetime CEO, is that rhetoric true and or necessary? So Luke, I'll maybe ask you and see if anyone else wants to take that.
Yeah, look, I think dealing with uncertainty, Didier touched on it earlier, dealing with the uncertainty is one of the hardest challenges for people. And as a leader, I think we need to be authentic and vulnerable, and also have the ability to context switch from the micro and the tactical of okay, this is the here and now, but also provide, a story of hope and clarity around what we can be certain about. And I think,
look specifically on that. I mean, are you wartime? Are you using that expression, or is that a bit crazy?
No, I know the term, but it's not something I run around saying. It's just I think there's attributes of that you can apply like anything. And so this is a time where, I think a lot of those attributes are relevant. But I don't run around saying we're in wartime.
Yeah. All right, let's keep rolling. So, Kate, I might ask you this one. So is there an opportunity to build, this is from Ariane Barker from Scale Investors. Thanks, Ariane. Is there an opportunity to build more empathy between investors and founders, along with parents working from home? So, Kate, I think that all of that applies to you.
Look, I hope that's one of the things that we keep after all of this is over, is just that sense of everybody is dealing with stuff in their lives and in their home environment that impacts on their work, whether it's, your kid running on in the middle of a live TV cross, like happened to me the other day, or, it's like...
Literally on TV, let's be on Zoom.
Yeah, no, so it was a Ticker TV, a Zoom,
right,
live broadcast thing. So that was cool. It's very cute, actually. You go, it's on my Twitter if you want to go and have a look. But you know, I think everybody just has to recognise that everybody's just people. Everybody's dealing with a whole bunch of crap at home, and you know, that's the stuff that everybody's been bringing that to work for the last, you know, however many years anyway. It's just that we were all supposed to kind of pretend it wasn't happening, and now it's very clear.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good thing. I mean, our investors have certainly been very understanding of it. You know, on Thursdays and Fridays, I don't actually have any childcare now. So my co-founder and I, who's also my partner, I'll have the kids in the morning, he'll have the kids in the afternoon. We switch over just after lunch. And that's just how it is on Thursdays and Fridays now.
And
yeah.
Bridget, I might jump to you in this. I mean, you've got Airtree as one of your cornerstone investors, and I know you've built and nurtured that relationship, and you know they are, you know, a great investor, so they are leaning in and helping their founders. So, are you feeling more empathy with them, or has the relationship changed?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, our investors have been, and not just Airtree, but all of them have been really amazing. They've been very supportive. I think sometimes there's only so much that your investors can help you with, you know, and sometimes it's just trying to think about, well, actually, how do I best leverage the support that these individuals can bring to me? But I certainly feel very supported on kind of all levels, from financial through to, you know, hard advice through to soft advice and support. Yeah. So I've leaned on them and been very, you know, open and transparent the whole time, and they're on WhatsApp really, you know, all the time. All
right, look, we're in 5 minutes to go, so let's just keep the cadence up. So, Luke, I might ask you this one. This is from Tim Mullen. Thank you, Tim. With the intensity of everyday work and personal life amplified hugely, what else are you all doing from a personal perspective to keep a clear mind and remain focused on the task and, I guess, your team?
Oh, this is a great question. I think this is super important. The amount of exercise that everyone on the team is doing is phenomenal. There's challenges set up, but there's also just people who normally wouldn't exercise who are getting out and doing stuff. And I think that is extremely important and something that we encourage people to do. People are going for runs at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They would never have done that, but they're still getting their work done. It makes their day much more tenable and enjoyable, and they're in a better frame of mind. And so we're really pushed to build healthy habits. Wear your uniform. I'm not just wearing this because I'm on this panel. It's what I'm putting on every day. You know, someone said to me yesterday they'd worked from home for a number of years in previous jobs, and the key for them was to put their shoes on, get dressed, go for a walk around the block, and then come back and start work. These kind of habits are really important, and we're just stressing the importance of them to everyone. But exercise is probably the biggest one for me personally. And
what are you doing? You're running,
I've been running. I've got a couple of kettlebells here. I've never ever worked out or anything, even though I once owned a gym. And so I'm actually now doing that each day, and get back into reading again, which I hadn't been doing for a while. I've just been so busy. And so I think, you know, putting good information into your brain. I hardly read the news at all at the moment. People send me stuff if it's important. You know, we all...
You can go batshit crazy watching the news.
Yeah, exactly. And so the only thing I check every now and again is the lockdown rules and what we can and can't do. But otherwise, you know, making sure we've got good stuff going in is just as important as the physical side.
I think this is an important question. I do want to hear the other perspective. So, Kate, what are you doing to stay healthy and sane?
I definitely have to get dressed for work and put my makeup on and all the things that I would usually do if I were going to the office. So for me, that's really important. I worked for so many years at the start of a door, like in my garage, wearing trackies, and it's just, I'm not going back there. I think, yeah, getting out in the sunshine, getting some fresh air is tremendous. You know, I'm doing that Couch to 5K app. It's like, all right, well, we can't go to the gym, we can't go to Pilates, I'm gonna have to do that running, so let's figure that out. What else? I don't know. I think you've just got to try and get some nice little sort of self-care moments in the day. I think our customers are doing that too. Like, find a minute to, you know, put a face mask on or give yourself a facial, or, you know, all those sorts of things that maybe, you know, maybe you'd go and get a massage or something, but you can't do that. So find a way to get your own little moments. You know, have a pretend date night at home.
And Bridget, what about you? Top tips?
Yeah, I think just doing the stuff that the guys mentioned there, like my first week was a disaster. I would it would be 9 p.m. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm still at my computer and I haven't had a shower yet, because I'm just going back to back. And so I had to pull up and say, okay, this week needs to be different. So now doing all the stuff the guy said. I think the other thing that I'd add to that is just like finding time to laugh. In disaster, laughing has been a really important, and just trying to keep things light where we can as well. And the team has been a really important, I think, antidote to the crisis and mayhem.
Been doing that a lot on our Slack, like little quizzes and that kind of thing. So one of the team was eating fantails the other day, and she was posting like pictures of the wrappers, you know, where you have to like guess who it is, and she would sort of fold down the bit so you couldn't see. And so we're all doing the quizzes on Slack, everybody trying to guess. But you just, little things.
Yeah. All right. Look, we're at 8:57 and a bit. So I might, you know, look, a ton of other questions, and look, thank you everyone for participating in that. So I think I might just call it and make sure that we're all out here by 9. So look, a huge thank you to our panelists. So Bridget, Kate, Luke, and Didier, who may watch the replay or not. You know, really appreciate you taking the time out from your other Zoom calls to talk to the community this morning. Take care of yourselves, your families, your dogs, and your team, and we will see you all on the other side. Now, I am going to just switch on my screen again, just while we wrap up from here. All right, so just talking about some of the things that we are doing. So we alluded to this new virtual event world that we're doing. So you know, and the impact that we had, I thought this morning was fantastic. Some really good insights. So I suspect we'll hopefully the audience enjoyed it. We are going to do this every week, Wednesday at 8 a.m. We're trying to work out what topics and speakers are going to add most value. So we've come up with a few. One of the main areas which we thought we'd touch on next week is just this government support. I mean, it's a moving feast. There's huge numbers being talked about. Some of the stuff's a little bit uncertain. So we're trying to make a bit more sense of that. So yeah, there's a bit of confusion that we're going to try and do, especially around this JobKeeper allowance and what that looks like. So we've got Alex Macaulay from Startup Oz, Kate Cornick from LaunchVic, and Rachel Newman, who's from Accelerating Commercialization and in fact AWS. And they're going to talk about how government's supporting the startups. So same time, same place next week. We do want to hear from you, the audience, about what other topics and guests, excuse me, we want to hear from. So there is a survey that will go out. So please do fill that in and tell us. Some other events that we're doing, we've got applications open. So, you know, we haven't stopped our work of connecting founders to investors, specifically in verticals. So we do have a renewable energy event, which is likely to be in June. It's, in fact, we do have a date. So Tuesday, the 16th of June. This is in partnership with ARENA, so the Australian Renewable Energy Agency. Plus, we're hosting a virtual event with X15 Ventures. They're looking to empower Australia's innovators to reshape banking as we know it. So if that is you, or if you just want to find out more, please do come along. That is on the 23rd of April, and that is all on the Innovation Bay website. If you are looking for a new podcast, or just to fill your boots with our one, we do a weekly deep dive into the Australian ecosystem. It's called Open the Pod Bay Doors. We've had Toby Norton-Smith from X15, Sally Ann Williams, Jodie Fox, and in fact, just launching this week for the second time in the show, we have Luke Anear. So thank you, Luke. I think you chatted to Faden a couple of weeks ago. So almost there. Look, thank you again to our incredible sponsors, AWS, Farmark Ventures, KPMG's High Growth Ventures, and Macquarie Bank. I could not do this without you and really appreciate your help. Finally, thank you all for joining us. Let me stop that and just get back to the panel and just do a final wrap. So look, thanks so much, panel. I've been your host, Ian Gardner. Innovation Bay is here to support you. So please do stay safe, stay strong, stay inside, and we hope to see you all again soon. So see you next time. Thanks.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you.